So you can maybe combine a lot of the things that we said with a partner, with a friend, or even just make the time and prioritize, like Mary said, whether it's going out with a friend or seeing your family more often. I know that that really changes my week for me when I'm able to actually make that commitment and go out with a girlfriend and talk to them.
Oh,
Like my whole
totally.
mood changes, right?
So, Carla, we have a great topic today to discuss, something that both you and I have personal experience with. But
Yeah.
before we dive in, I have a question for you.
Oh boy. Okay.
So, I get asked this quite frequently, so I'm curious what your answer is. So, what's the one non negotiable thing that you do every day for your health?
Ooh, non-negotiable. Does it have to be one? Can it be many?
I have two.
Okay.
So,
All right, that's fair. Two's good. I would say definitely movement. So I have to like I don't have to go to the gym every day because my gym is more so like lifting weights for me, but I have to either like go for a walk for like 20, 30 minutes or do some type of yoga or something like that. I just need to move. I feel like I have a lot of like stored up emotions and feelings. And if I don't move, I don't feel good. My mental health is completely off for the rest of the day.
I
And
echo that
then
completely.
yeah, I think the second one for me, non-negotiable, is it's gonna sound so weird and probably cliche in this day and age, but if I don't eat protein, I also feel like shit. And like that's something I focus on with every meal is making sure I get enough protein because then my blood sugar is off, which affects my mood, it affects my productivity, it affects how I feel. So I think anything that affects energy, whether it's mental or physical, is something I need to prioritize.
Great. Yeah. Um,
What's yours?
so mine also is movement.
Mm,
That's a huge one. I just exactly like what you said. I mentally do not feel sound for the day if I don't start my day with movement. So I try to do actual workouts, but sometimes it's just like you said, a 20, 30-minute walk.
yeah.
Or in the winter, I like to ski in the mornings and then do my work in the afternoon. So that, and then the other one is sleep hygiene. And that's,
Oh,
when people think about working with a nutritionist or a health coach, they often just think you're going to be talking about food, right? But
mhm.
those are the two things that I prioritize working with people on as well is getting movement. So many people are sedentary all day. And if you can even just start with a 5-minute walk after a couple meals, that's
Yeah.
really beneficial for your health and your blood sugar. And then sleep hygiene. Sleep is just the ultimate elixir for health and youth. And
Oh, yes.
I sleep is like my favorite thing.
Yeah. Oh
so,
my gosh.
so
Yes.
those are my big priorities that are non-negotiable.
Sleep is coming into play. It's been probably the thing I fought most with in my life. Like, I've never prioritized it as much as I do now, but it's still not up there where I want it to be. So it's like a work in progress. But after you said like beauty and age elixir, I was like, oh, yeah, skincare is also up there. So, but
Totally.
that's, yeah, we could go on and on probably.
We could. Yes. Okay, so let's get into our topic for the day. We're going to be talking about emotional burnout, what that looks like, how do you know if you have it, what are the causes, what you can do about it.
Yeah. Which I think we're both pretty experienced in, unfortunately, which maybe a lot of people are actually.
Well, we were talking before we started recording how both you and I have struggled with burnout personally, professionally, and how it's an ongoing practice that we work on to prevent burnout, recognize it and put some healthy practices into play so that we don't get sucked back into it.
Yeah, and it is something, it goes obviously hand in hand with stress, but it's not something that's ever going to go away. So I hate when people are like, "Oh, just get rid of your stress." It's more about how you manage it. And I'll admit I was never great at that in the past. It's something I've really had to work on and even now still struggle with, but I think creating little behaviors and habits that help with it every day and being consistent is really what makes a difference in the long term.
Yeah, very well said. And people associate burnout with just working too hard, but there are physically and emotionally traumatic experiences that aren't work related necessarily that can cause burnout. And both of us know what that's like also.
Yeah. And we actually discussed it in the last episode, when we talked about relationships. That absolutely can lead to burnout on top of everything else going on in your life, right? It's like that overwhelm.
Yeah. And my biggest pet peeve about the whole topic is like you were just saying, get over your stress. Mine is, well, just go to a yoga or a wellness retreat and then you'll be all fixed up.
Oh,
And it's a
God.
little bit more complex than that.
I wish that was the case. If that was the case,
Yeah.
I would have been cured a long time ago.
Yeah. If I could spend a week in Costa Rica doing yoga and then I wouldn't have burnout anymore, sign me up.
Yeah, right? So practical.
So, what is burnout?
So for me, it is chronic, ongoing stress. So, really like sustained stress that doesn't go away. And it eventually leads to burnout, right? So, that, like you said, it could be emotional, it could be work related. But I feel like it's all these different types of stress in your life when they come together, or when you're just, overworking yourself to the point where your body can physically not go on, or mentally.
Yeah. And again, people assume that stress or burnout is just something in your head, right? But they're actually physiological things that happen in your system, physiological, like a cascade of stress response that happens when you're experiencing burnout. And I wrote an article about this on my website. It was during COVID times where I think I read a statistic that 2/3 of people reported that they were feeling burned out. And the one of the main reasons was just this isolation and forced into our homes where we couldn't connect with each other or nature. So physiologically, what happens during burnout is your adrenal glands, which are charged with managing your stress response. They're two little glands that sit on top of your kidneys. And they're responsible in part for regulating your cortisol levels. So cortisol is one of your main stress hormones, and it's a good hormone. You need cortisol. It responds to light and dark cycles. We have higher cortisol during the day when the sun's out, so we have energy, and we have lower cortisol at night, so we can sleep through the night. So you have this kind of nice rhythm, this cortisol rhythm. And if that's disrupted, if you're under chronic stress, your adrenals secrete more cortisol, and that makes you feel kind of wired. And so a lot of people describe feeling burned out as this wired and tired feeling.
Mm.
And that's one of the most common things I hear when I'm talking to people about this. And chronic high cortisol can have a lot of physical implications on the body, and a main one being inflammation. And we know that inflammation systemically is a huge cause of a lot of different diseases. So what happens in this kind of chronically burned out state, you're producing too much cortisol, your mitochondria, which are the powerhouses of your cells that are responsible for producing energy, they start to malfunction, and people just feel really burned out and tired.
Yeah. I almost want to describe it as, when you're exhausted, you haven't gotten enough sleep, and you drink caffeine to try to, wake yourself up,
Yeah,
but that's
totally.
not even working. I feel like that's when you know. So, along with the wired and tired feeling, I think that's also where personally I get really anxious if I get, too much of that feeling. I don't know if you can relate, Mary, but I feel like that drives anxiety for me, which also contributes to like sleep issues and irregular sleep patterns. I
Well, high
typically,
cortisol causes
yeah,
anxiety too.
exactly. It's almost like a cycle. And at that point, I get really scared because I get anxious and I'm like, shit, I'm not getting enough sleep. So then I start relying on like sleep supporters. I don't take melatonin a lot, but I'll take some other types of things to help me with sleep. But even some of those like make me wake up groggy. And so then I'm like, I need to stop doing this. And it's just like this vicious cycle. And I'm like, how do I get back on track?
Yeah, and it is a vicious cycle for a lot of people. And we were talking earlier that I think for me, workplace stress was one of the major causes, along with relationship stress. Then we were moving into COVID. And so it can be this just kind of gradual progression of situations that you're in, or life circumstances that you're dealing with, that can really kind of push you over the edge. So we talk a lot about this total load threshold that we have as humans, right? So you kind of, when you, if your cup overflows and you exceed your capacity to handle stressors as they come at you, then that's when you start to notice symptoms. And so for me personally, I've been running my own business for almost half my life now. And that's incredibly stressful because I don't have a regular paycheck to rely on. I'm basically a freelancer. So I'm always kind of low grade stressed about money and making sure that I am creating enough content and that I have happy clients and that I'm getting new clients. And so working for yourself when you don't have a reliable paycheck is just kind of an ongoing source of stress. And then there's the work stress and coming up with the content that I'm creating and actually just working with people and talking all day. And so when COVID hit, and again, we were all kind of trapped in our houses and isolated and we couldn't really do anything or go anywhere, I started to just really notice that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, when you sit with yourself and you have the time, you really start to notice things, don't you?
Yeah. And that's when I wrote that article on burnout during COVID. And for me, it really manifested as just this complete apathy. I was just like completely apathetic about my work, about everything, about life. And I was just constantly sort of low grade anxious, like you were describing. I just didn't feel like myself or feel right. And it was just kind of mostly categorized by this total apathy and lack of wanting to do anything. I like my work and I like working with people and I like helping people. And during this time I was thinking, what is it all for? What am I doing? Kind of this existential crisis questions that you ask yourself. Like, is this right for me? Because the
Right.
other part, as you know, during COVID, the whole wellness industry became really divided on vaccines and public health. And there was a lot that cracked wide open that kind of shook me a little bit. I know you had a similar experience. So, all those little things together. And suddenly it's just a decreased ability to handle life's stressors that come your way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely relate. I mean, COVID was really tough for me. Actually, I was unemployed during COVID. And I had already been unemployed, I think, for a couple months when COVID hit. But similar to you, Mary, where I have had parts of my life where I've been self-employed, excuse me, but I've also gone back and I've been employed. And I feel like I've done that a few times in my life where I've gone, from one to the other, from one back to the other. And right now it's like half and half. And I feel like it's a really good like balance because I don't have to super worry about it financially, but I still get to be creative and do what I love, the other half part of the time. So I'm trying to find that balance and what that looks like. But I would say last year for me was the absolute biggest burnout I've ever had in my life. I like completely hit rock bottom. And I'll just be super transparent with everyone here because why not? Um, I ended up when my lease ended in Los Angeles in April, I put everything in storage. And I literally, for the last probably year or two, had been questioning my entire life. Everything from my relationship wasn't going well. My dad had been diagnosed with cancer. I was super stressed out with my job. I was working at a startup. And if you've ever worked for a startup, it's absolutely nonstop. It's very demanding. Everything is due yesterday. It's just not an ideal situation to have a real like work life balance. Anyways, so what ended up happening is I didn't really know what to do, what my next steps was. So I always wanted to live out of the country. So I put everything in storage and I went for the summer and I went to Spain and I tried to figure out, what I wanted in life. And I came back in the fall and now I'm obviously trying to rebuild. But that like 6 months of last year was really rough because I had no home, I had no car, I was living in another country. I was still working my full-time job, by the way, when I was in Spain, so I wasn't completely free.
Mhm.
And it's like just everything. I'm already like an overthinker and I think always in the future instead of being in the present. And so for me, it was really just difficult to really understand like what I needed to learn in this moment. Like what was this lesson teaching me? And when I came back, it was I finally like I think, figured it out, or I'm still figuring it out, but I'm doing a lot better now that I kind of have the foundations back. And I know that's like an extreme example because a lot of people probably don't go through all of that, but just the little things in life can always add up, and that can eventually, really affect your entire life, and you may not even see it coming. I never saw it coming. This all happened within a few months. So, it was just crazy times.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we were talking about the total load threshold and how if your cup runs over, and
Yeah.
so good. I remember when you went through all of this and having your eat, pray, love through Europe. But you know
That's
that
exactly what it was.
it reminds me also of how just in this country we put such an emphasis and prioritize work so much at the expense of joy in our lives. And we have this American work ethic, pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality, work your fingers to the bone. We don't see our families. We don't connect with other people far as much as we should. We don't get the movement we need to. Humans are designed to move throughout the day, right? And a lot of us are sitting 10, 12 hours at a desk all day long. And all of these physical and emotional things build up. And that's what happens when you exceed your total load threshold, right?
Yeah, exactly. So let's get into some solutions for people. Like what can they start doing to help with their stress levels?
Well, the big one, of course, that we talk about is diet, right? So when you're really stressed out, you're more likely to consume processed foods, fast food, because stress really messes with your cortisol, and cortisol also manages your blood sugar, right? We've been talking a lot about that. And when your blood sugar levels are all wonky, you're more susceptible to cravings or increased hunger, or you crave salty foods, especially. So you're more likely to consume foods that maybe are not part of your normal diet, or you just are like, fuck it, I don't feel like cooking. You get a lot of takeout. So paying mind to your diet is a great way to support your body physically, making sure that you're getting good enough protein and that you're eating enough plant foods, vegetables, fruits of all types for your antioxidants, healthy fats, avocado, olive oil, dark chocolate, which reduces stress and is very good for you. So that's a great place to start if you want to add anything there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just want to emphasize how important managing blood sugar is for stress levels. I feel like that's why I said, when you asked me that question to begin with, that's why I said protein, because I know for myself personally, if my blood sugar is not managed, I really can't get anything else done throughout the day. Like, it throws off literally everything. And I truly think that when people's blood sugar is regulated, they stop roller coastering throughout the day. It's more sustained, which means everything is their emotions, their productivity, their ability to manage stress, right? So it's just so crazy important. And it's something that it will take time if you don't know how to manage your blood sugar. You have to start playing with your meals, seeing how things react to you. But I think one of the early episodes, Mary, we talked a little bit about this. And one of the biggest tips I can give people is including apple cider vinegar before your meals. It's such an easy hack, and there's so much research around it. So if you take a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, 15 to 20 minutes before your meal, you mix it with 8 ounces of water, drink that, and then 20 minutes later, eat your meal. That has actually been shown to scientifically lower your blood sugar just by doing that one thing. So include everything else Mary just said, but then in addition, add that in.
Yeah, the apple cider vinegar hack is really great for blood sugar management. And that reminds me of another thing that I tell people too that I work with is you have control over when you eat and what you eat. One of the huge causes of burnout too is just sort of this unpredictability during COVID times, especially, and feeling stressed because you don't really know what's going to happen or what life is going to bring. And that causes people a lot of anxiety. So there are things, control what you can control, right? And you can control your meal timing, you can control your movement, you can control what you're eating, when you go to sleep, how regularly you're eating. So all of those things are really important to keep in mind that actually you do have control over, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, in addition to diet, we talked a lot about, I feel like, these other things, but one of the things I really love and I'm still trying to implement is the no screen time rule. So, 2 to 3 hours before bed, avoiding blue light essentially, which is computers, TVs, phones, iPads, anything like that can actually mess up that circadian rhythm, interfere with your sleep, and also cause your cortisol levels to be off. So that simple thing right there too, I shouldn't say simple because it's not simple. It's really hard in our day and age. We're surrounded by TV and screens and social media. With our kind of work, Mary, we're constantly online. We're constantly in front of the screen. So I should not say simple. It's not simple, but it is something that you have to be mindful of. If you really want to get that quality sleep.
Well, and at the very least, you can use blue blocker glasses because it's that
Yeah.
blue light from screens.
Yeah.
So that is just kind of a harm reduction method. Ideally, you wouldn't have screen time from your computer, from your phone, from your Kindle. But if it's absolutely unavoidable, because sometimes I'll admit, I really like to bring my computer to bed and we watch our little shows or our movies before bed. And there's something just nice about lying down, watching something on the computer. So I actually have blue light glasses that are built into my frames, but you can purchase on Amazon or wherever you like to buy stuff online, blue light blocking glasses. They're really inexpensive. So that's one option for nights where maybe it's unavoidable.
That's a good really good point. I also try to, like, treat myself on the weekends for that. So,
Yeah,
I'll,
I love
like,
it.
give myself a Monday through Friday routine or Monday through Thursday, and then be a little bit more flexible on the weekends with that. Because yeah, it is tough.
Yeah. So we have diet, and then we have attention to habits and attention to sleep hygiene in general. So sleep is really something that I just love, but but sleep is really the only time your body completely shuts off and is able to do its repair work, its healing work. Your immune system is most active at night, your brain detoxes at night. So if you're not getting good sleep, you're robbing yourself of these really important physiological functions that happen. And it just makes you feel good. The nights that I don't get good sleep, I'm just kind of
Oh.
like a total monster the next day. So, sleep hygiene, really important. And then the other thing that I love for burnout are adaptogenic herbs. So, I just love adaptogenic herbs. They're kind of like your fairy godmother that regulates everything in your body. That if levels of your cortisol, for example, just one example, if your cortisol is too high, adaptogenic herbs will help regulate it. If it's too low, it's kind of like a thermostat. They'll bring it up.
Yeah,
So
like a modulator.
so there are these adaptogens are these classes of herbs and some medicinal mushrooms that help your body adapt to stress. That's why they're called adaptogenic. And you can often find them in blends, like Gaia herbs has a really good one. And you'll see things like rhodiola is a big one that helps your body with stamina and stress and energy. Ashwagandha is a great one for nighttime use because it really helps relieve anxiety.
Mhm.
Holy basil, which is also Tulsi. You can get that as a tea.
Yeah.
There's another one called Shizandra. That's good. We have these all listed in the article that I'll post, but there are some really good medicinal mushrooms too, like reishi and cordyceps that really help your immune system. So these adaptogenic herbs really are your best friend when you're going through stressful events. And I tell people too, one of the best ways to avoid stress or any health implications that come from feeling stressed out is to support yourself during, or if you know that you're heading into a really stressful period at work or a stressful event, start taking these herbs ahead of time and help support yourself so that you don't crash.
Yeah. And with herbs, I know not everyone can take them because there might be some allergies, there could be side effects, there could be medication interactions. So I always want to tell people to, like, make sure and talk to your doctor first, especially if you're taking medications because you just never know. But in addition to herbs, there's also a lot of nutrients that you can take too, supplement wise. So I know we talk about sunshine a lot and how important it is for not just stress, but also depression, everyone knows that, right? Vitamin D being the sunshine vitamin. If you're not getting enough sunlight, if you're not converting that sunlight into vitamin D in your body enough, like I know I'm not capable of that. So I guess the more melanin you have in your on your skin, like the less capability you have to actually convert vitamin D. So I found out that the hard way. I stayed out in the sun, and I still love the sun a little too much, but my levels weren't going up, and until I actually started to supplement. So vitamin D3, I like taking it with K2. That's a great supplement to take. I take higher doses, 5,000 IUs, 10,000 IUs, take them for short periods of times, maybe 2 to 3 months, then recheck your levels. Remember, vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin, so it can accumulate in your body. But I think that's a great one. Also, magnesium, your body depletes a lot of magnesium when you're super stressed. So you will be deficient in it. So that's something that you should be taking. There's a lot of forms of magnesium. We could probably do a whole podcast episode on it. But different types of magnesiums do different things. So magnesium glycinate is a great one for sleep. Constipation, that's magnesium citrate. There's one specifically actually for depression and like mental clarity. I want to say,
Yeah, it's
Mary, do you know
brain
what that
health.
is?
It's like
Yeah,
magnesium threonate.
that's what
I
it
can
is.
never
Yes,
say
three and
it.
eight.
I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
never say
same.
it
That's
right.
why I was like hesitant. I was like, wait, how do you? Yes, that's exactly what it is. So, anyways, there's a lot of magnesiums out there. Choose the one that's right for you. The last one I'll mention is B vitamins too, similar to magnesium, where when you are under stress, your B vitamins can deplete. So these are always just kind of essentials to take if that's something that you're going through.
Yeah, and I'll add vitamin C to that. Vitamin C is incredibly good for your adrenal glands and, of course, your immune system. So, and the B vitamins are really important too because those get flushed pretty quickly, especially 6 and 12 when you're
Yeah.
under stress. And I wanted to mention maca too. Maca
Mm.
is a Peruvian adaptogenic herb that was taken by some sort of warriors, and I can't remember which ones they are now. Maybe the Mayans or the Incans or something, but and before they would go into battle. So maca is a great one. There are specific forms of maca that can help balance female hormones. Your hormones can go absolutely haywire if you're burned out or stressed out. It can affect your menstrual cycle. So maca is a really great one for energy and for sleep and for female hormone balance. There's a brand I like specifically called Feminescence, and it has 3 different types of maca for hormone balance for premenopausal, perimenopausal, postmenopausal. So so yeah, it's a really great one for stamina energy.
I've taken maca in the past. I love the taste of it. Like I used to put it in like when I would make like raw energy balls or things like that. But I've also taken it because it was prescribed by a naturopathic doctor to me. And I didn't really notice a big difference. I'm curious if you have, Mary, when you've taken it.
Yeah, this is something I actually really like to talk
Okay.
about in regards to maca. I have a article on my blog about it, but not like any supplement. Not all maca or not any supplement is created equally. So
Right.
there's a lot of bunk supplements out there, and maca's no exception. So this brand specifically is geared, Feminescence is geared toward female hormone balance, and I notice a huge difference taking it.
Mm.
Um, so you just really want to vet your brands carefully. And there's something like, multiple phenotypes, like different forms of maca. So oftentimes in the supplement, you'll just see it won't specify and it's hard to know. And there's different colors of maca and they all do different things. So you would really want with any supplement to vet the quality or work with a professional to help you find what's right for you, because it's really hard to navigate all of this information and know this stuff out there. But people, and there are a lot of really shitty supplements, so you want to be really careful about quality and efficacy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure with any supplement. But that's really good to know that that was something that you actually saw results with.
Oh yeah, I'm still taking it.
Hmm.
And again, I'm perimenopausal. I'm in my late 40s. And I, knock on wood, a million times, have never had any issues with hot flashes or night sweats like most of the women that I work with who are perimenopausal and are coming to me for help. I haven't had any symptoms of that at all. And I credit
Oh,
it really with this maca,
that's
which
amazing.
is designed specifically. It's all of the phenotypes of maca that support energy and support hormone balance and prevent those symptoms. So I've been taking this one for years. In fact, I took the other type of it in my premenopausal years. Now I'm taking the perimenopause one. And then, like I said, there's a postmenopause one. So the bottom line here is quality matters.
Yeah.
So do your research and or have a professional help you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious, when did the perimenopause symptoms start for you?
Well, I didn't really, I haven't really had many of them because I think, I take a lot of different herbs and supplements and kind of rotate through, and we'll do a perimenopause episode. But
Yes.
what I first started noticing, I would say when I was maybe like 46, I'm 49 now, was wonky cycles, like wonky
Mm.
menstrual cycles. And that's often the first symptom that people will notice. But I've gotten women in their early 40s that are having pretty serious, you notice body composition changes. And a lot of women will first notice irritability and rage. And that was
Mm.
another one of my main symptoms was rage. And I'm not even joking. I shouldn't laugh about it because I'm already prone to irritability, but I just was like completely ragey. So oftentimes those are the first symptoms you'll notice are your cycles getting shorter or irregular or
Yeah.
spotting, things like that. And then these mood issues, anxiety, depression, rage, irritability, and then sleep is another really common one. So tying it into what we're talking about is burnout and stress and irregular cortisol levels can affect your sex hormones as well and can exacerbate or cause some of these symptoms.
Right. And also, if you don't take care of it earlier on, menopause symptoms will just become worse and worse. So it's always good to get a handle on them in your early 30s, I would say, is probably where you want to start, just to be able to, when you go into perimenopause and menopause, it's a smoother transition.
Oh, totally. Like I tell women to start testing their hormones in their 20s and 30s just so you have a baseline
Wow.
and you know kind of where you are. And you can easily test your hormones at home with kits like Everlywell offers a women's health hormone kit and a perimenopause kit. So again, we'll have another episode on this where we'll
Yeah. I was going to say,
deep
God, we could go
dive
into this.
because we're getting on a tangent, but
I
there's a
know.
lot to say about it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I look forward to that one.
Yeah, me too. I am launching a course to help perimenopausal women in the spring. And so I have a lot to say about the topic and I've been deep diving into it. And of course, it's really interesting being a practitioner helping people with all of these topics we've been talking about and then experiencing it yourself. Right. So I've been helping people deal with hormone balance and stress maintenance and management and burnout for the majority of my career. And then when it happens to you, it's like, oh my God, you have just a completely different perspective about what people are going through, which helps you help them, but you also know how to better help yourself. But it's just so interesting to me having firsthand knowledge of something, which is why I would never go to a male gynecologist. I
Oh
mean,
my
you can
god.
study all you want, but if you don't have the parts, do you really know? So, I mean,
Oh my god. That's awesome.
no offense
Yeah.
to male gynecologists, but
No,
my
and
point,
I will say I've heard that they are phenomenal. The girls that I know, women, excuse me, that
yeah,
go to them, love them,
that's what I've
and
heard
I
too,
respect that.
actually.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's kind of like a weird thing to even, contemplate, but, probably not for me. I'm with you on that camp. But, yeah, if you're into it, why not?
Well, yeah. So my point being with that is you get a completely different perspective when you have gone through something that you've been helping with people with the
Yeah,
majority of your life. When you're going through it yourself, it's just more enlightening. I feel like I have a lot more
yeah,
experience now that I can help people with these issues. And stress is a huge cause of our modern day illnesses. And what happens when you're stressed out or you're burned out is like we talked about, these hormonal cascades create inflammation and it wears down your immune system. So it makes you more susceptible to illness.
yeah.
And kind of this chronic imbalance and chronic inflammatory cycle sets you up for being more susceptible to longer term illnesses and disease. So maintaining balance in the body is crucial, and we're all going to have stress. And so that's what I was saying earlier is managing your stress properly, by controlling what you can control and using these really wonderful herbs and nutrients and supplements that are right for you, that those are all ways that we can just kind of mitigate stress when it is piling on.
Yeah. The last thing I do want to say about supplements is supplements are meant to supplement your diet, your lifestyle. They're not the way to dictate it. So I always want to recommend people do lifestyle and, oh, sorry, it's me. I always want to recommend that people do lifestyle and behavior changes first and then add on the supplements. I think it may be a little different. Obviously, when you're going through stress, I think it can be incredibly helpful and a great partner, and especially like entering perimenopause. But in general, I think a lot of people just jump to the supplements without doing the behavior work. And that is almost, always not going to give you results. And then they're like, oh, the supplements don't work for me. And I was like, well, did you do any for everything else? And they're like, not really.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually.
I see that a lot.
Yeah. So yeah, we talked about a lot of different solutions, how to support yourself through stress, how to potentially ward off stress by the suggestions that we've been talking about here today. But the last one I want to mention too, or I don't know if you have any more that you want to add, is I talked a little bit about this need for connection and how isolation and COVID really exacerbated a lot of stress and burnout for people. And humans are really wired for connection with one another. And actually, that has been associated with longevity. So people who report that they're lonely or feeling isolated, they don't live as long as people who have a good community and a good social network. So keep in mind, we're wired for connection and being around other humans and sharing experiences with other humans. And that's vitally important. And a lot of people during COVID who were living alone were struggling with this.
Yeah.
So maintaining and fostering community is just so important for your health overall.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the things we talked about are things that are continuing to do alone, right? You're still isolating yourself, whether it's workout or going for a walk. But how can you take those things and do it with someone else? Right. So you can maybe combine a lot of the things that we said with a partner, with a friend, or even just make the time and prioritize, like Mary said, whether it's going out with a friend or seeing your family more often. I know that really changes my week for me when I'm able to actually make that commitment and go out with a girlfriend and talk to them,
Oh,
like my whole
totally.
mood changes, right?
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm one of these people that when someone cancels on me, I'm like, I just feel so relieved. I'm like, oh God, thank God, I don't have to go out or do anything. But and sometimes I'll make plans and then I'll sort of dread them. But to your point, when I go through with it and do it, I feel so much better.
Yeah.
Like it's really hard for me some mornings. I have a group of girlfriends that like to go skiing in the winter, and I'll be like, oh, I don't want to put on all my clothes and go to a cold mountain. And then as soon as I get out there, I'm getting exercise. I'm with people I like to hang out with. It's once you're once you're in it and doing it, you feel so much better after, right? It's kind of like exercise.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
I love to exercise because I like the way it makes me feel. But
Yeah.
the best part about exercise is feeling great afterwards, right?
You will never regret doing movement of any sort ever. It's just no one ever said that. You
Yeah.
know? Yeah. So prioritizing movement, sunshine, social connections are all very, very important. I don't think the blue zones we're taking a lot of the supplements that we mentioned, but in
Yeah.
reality,
And the blue zones, of course, are the areas around the world that report the highest happiness and longevity.
yeah,
And
exactly.
unsurprisingly, a lot of those are in Europe.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think
There is one in California. There is
America
one.
has one blue zone, and I believe it's like Loma Linda or something like that in California.
Loma.
So, and a lot of them are, another one is like Okinawa in Japan. There is one maybe in Italy or in Spain or Greece, something like that. Other cultures do it better than we do, I believe.
Yeah, for sure. If you guys want to check out, there's a really great Netflix documentary on talking about the blue zones and how they live. It's fascinating.
Oh, cool. One thing else I was going to mention too is a therapist. So just talking to a therapist if you have resonated with anything that we have said today, aside from just, again, the little lifestyle habits that you can incorporate into your day and, managing your diet and your meal timing, like we've talked about, but just talking about and processing some of these emotions with a trained health professional, mental health professional, can really lighten your load and can be really effective too. So there's not one magic bullet for any of this stuff, right? It's a combination of all the little habits and practices that you put forth in a day that are really going to help to support your health.